The topic that I was interviewing them around was focused on their questions. And there's this belief I have that the quality of the questions you ask yourself impacts the quality of your life. Keith Cunningham framed that a different way. He said, smart people have great answers. Geniuses have great questions. And I really liked that. I was intrigued because what I realized is what you think about impacts what you feel, impacts the actions you take, and then the results that you get. So I just been picking the brains of these amazing people, best-selling authors, world champion athletes, being business owners, and asking them, what's the question they've asked that's had the biggest impact on their life. Now, I wish I could summarize all 200 for you, but I'll pick out some of the key ones for you. I had a gentleman who was a very successful business owner, but he was also a magician. And you know what a magician does? When a magician does a trick and then out of nowhere comes a card, what question do you ask yourself? You're kind of thinking, how did he do that? How did he do that? And I think as business owners, I think it's a really powerful question for us to ask because people are having success. Success leaves clues. So if we see someone ahead of you, and you see someone ahead of you doing really well, ask that question. How did they do that? And chances are, if you go and ask them and check in with them, they'll tell you. People ahead of you really want to help you out and, and want to support you with that. I was interviewing this gentleman, Jim, of Jim's franchise. He is one of the largest franchise owners, if not the largest franchise owner in Australia. He does 500 million a year. And I'm asking him about his questions. And just in the middle of the conversation, I caught one of these beliefs. And he said this, and you might want to write this one down because it's very useful for you. It says, there's opportunity everywhere. I see the opportunity and I pick it up from the ground. And I think that's just a real powerful belief to have. That's not even a question. But if you have that belief, if you believe there's opportunity everywhere, you're going to start seeing opportunity everywhere. So there's a couple. I got way more I can keep going, but hopefully that gets us off to a good start.
Well, you got to keep going. One thing I know about the mind is we have more than 60,000 thoughts per day. And as you said, our thoughts influence our feelings. And it's those feelings that determine our actions and what we do and don't do. And the only difference between successful people and the ones who aren't as successful yet is they just do think differently. So in terms of the way they think, what else did you learn about the way that they think?
Well, there's beliefs around this. So, and in particular, identity beliefs. One of the strongest forces in the human personality is to remain consistent with how we define ourselves. I think we all recognize this. If you ever said, oh, I'm a terrible sleeper, or oh, I'm terrible at remembering names. Like, has anyone ever said I'm terrible at remembering names? Guess what? Like, if you say that, you're going to reinforce that belief and you will continue to be terrible at remembering names. And you continue to be terrible at sleeping. If that happens to be you, if I offered you $1 million for every name that you remember, do you think you become good at remembering names? Like you become very good.
I'd transform immediately.
You transform immediately. So it's just a belief, right? And so anything that we say after the words I am really impacts how we show up. And so the question that we can ask ourselves, and this came from Amanda Holmes of Chet Holmes International, she asks the question frequently, who am I? Who am I? And the clearer we get on our identity and who we're going to be and how we're going to show up, the more we begin to act in accordance with that. Now, I know you have some people on the call who are in a corporate background and are getting to that stage where they need to step into being a leader or more of a leader. I had that experience. I was a very good accountant, very good technically at what I did. So I got promoted and all of a sudden I was good at these technical stuff, which was numbers and spreadsheets. Then I had a team of 28 people. I had no skills. I didn't know how to work with them. Like the best I could do, I had team members come into the office and crying on me. And the best I could do was go, oh, here you go, like have a tissue. Like that was my strategy. So, but once I realized that I'm a leader now, I had to be a leader. I had to start identifying myself as a leader. I would say to myself, I go on a run and I would say frequently, I am a leader. I am a leader. I'm a leader. And when I say that, I had to get a vision of myself being a leader. Now, I did that so often that when an opportunity came in that corporate environment for me to step up and be a leader, normally I would have stood back. But my brain said, I am a leader. I stood in, I started acting as a leader before I realized that, oh, that's interesting. So how are we defining ourselves? I know we've got business owners on here as well. Are you defining yourself as a business owner? Are you actually defining yourself as a growing business owner? I hear a lot of people, they don't even admit that they're a business owner. They don't say that themselves. But if you identify yourself as a business owner or as a growing business owner, you're going to take different actions and get different results. So that question, who am I? And more importantly, you have a goal or a vision of something you want to achieve. Who do you want to be? Identify who you want to be and then start acting in that way. And results will change massively and quickly.
A lot of it comes from conditioning as well. And I had the experience when my parents were in business, we're just self-employed. And that theme ran through their entire business. And what happened? They were just self-employed and there were no employees. And that's a very different thinking to a leader, because in my black book, we say that leadership is the ability to get followers.
Yep.
And once you become a leader, you'll see that people will follow your advice, they'll follow your ideas, and they will, when you delegate a task, they're going to follow through and do it. And yes, the way that we speak to ourselves is so important. I had a wonderful experience this morning, and I was walking my son Caesar to school, and we crossed the basketball field. And he said to me, he said, "Dad, what's our affirmation for December?" And I thought to myself, are we in December already? And I said, I'll have to have a look on the phone. I'll see what it is. And I said to him, I said, it's, I'm proud of myself. And he said it 3 times. He said, I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself. I'm proud of myself. And you got to think about it. He's only 6 years old. And he said, Dad, that's a hard one. And I was looking at when he was saying it, he's missing his front 2 teeth and one down here. He's saying, I'm proud of myself. And he said, that's really hard. And I said, you're doing great. He said, Dad, what was the affirmation for Halloween? And I was thinking to myself, for Halloween? For Halloween? And I said, it was, I am enough. He said, no, Dad, I am enough is for November. And I said, well, I'm going to have a look at my phone and I'll tell you what was the one for October. And so I got onto phone. I said to Siri, what was the affirmation for the month of October? And he said, Dad, I already know it. And I said, well, what is it? He said, I'm very charming. And I said, say it 3 times. And he said, I'm very charming. I'm very charming. And, you know, as adults, we forget about this, but the children understand the simplicity of it. I am proud of myself. You should be. I am enough. Stop waiting. You've got enough knowledge and skill to start. And the third one, I am very charming. And that's leaders. And it was just a wonderful experience this morning.
Wonderful experience and really great example. And you kind of hit the nail on the head. And why don't we start that earlier? It takes a while for us to maybe come to this idea, this realization, you know, who am I? But if you could start defining that at the age of, your son, it will make a major difference to his life already, because he starts the game knowing who he is.
Mm. There's 2 ways. We can learn or we can teach. And if we teach, we then learn twice. So for me, I'm always teaching my clients the best way to talk to themselves. And every time I teach them, I've got to apply it to myself. So as I'm saying, I'm proud of myself, I think to myself, you know what? I've come a long way. I am enough. Okay, I'm going to go after that goal. And I'm very charming. Well, truth is, my wife married me, and that's proof. I got
Proof.
I kissed the frogs, and I got the princess.
Beautiful, and you should be proud of that.
I've got to be. Now, in 2022 through to 2023, in Australia, there was more than 406,000 businesses that opened and a whopping 386,000 that closed. And the only reason why a business closes is because of a lack of profitability. And you're the expert in this field. Why are so many businesses not profitable?
I'm going to add to that. It is a lack of profitability ultimately, but there are plenty of profitable businesses that don't have cash and actually run out of cash. And I'll give you an example. I was listening to this week the story of Nike, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. And it was a really fascinating journey, because now he's a multi-bazillionaire, you know, he's a billionaire many times over. But the theme throughout the story was he was pushing so hard and trying to grow so fast, his cash was constrained. Every time he had cash, he would put it into more team members, more stock. And there were points where he didn't have enough money to pay. Now, the business was profitable, but he did not have enough cash flow to sustain the thing and keep it going. So sometimes business can be profitable and still out of business because their cash is out of the business. It's held in stock, is waiting to be paid back by the customers. So we've got to manage the cash flow very tightly. Look, a lot of businesses can go out of business because it's sometimes not through fault of their own. There are industry changes, there are structural changes. You look at it now, we have new technology coming in. We've got AI. AI will disrupt a lot of jobs. In the past, we had internet come in. Internet probably took away a lot of jobs, right? Because things change. And now as a business owner, we have to be flexible, we have to change, and we have to move with that, and and deal with what's in front of us. If we don't adapt, we don't change, chances are your business isn't going to be here, in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. So we can never be in a fixed mindset. We always have to be in the mindset of growth. Now, I think really to answer your questions, there's two solid reasons behind it, why businesses don't become profitable or stay profitable. One is mindset, and two is the model. From a mindset perspective, we've already tapped into some of this from the 200 business owners I've met, but a lot of people have mindset beliefs around money. We don't always get taught or conditioned in the right way to have a wealth mindset or a wealth consciousness. And you'll be able to finish these sentences as I'm saying them to you, right? So money is the root of
All
all
evil.
evil, right? Money doesn't grow on
Trees.
it takes money to make.
Money.
Everyone listening kind of can do that because that's been conditioned to us in the culture. I said this in Sweden. I said, it takes money to make, and someone shouted out, it takes money to make out. I was like, oh, okay. That's a different belief. That's very interesting.
That's where you need the mindset of I'm very charming, and then it comes
That's
for
right.
free.
We need to go. We need to get him this podcast episode,
You
and
get paid.
he'll be his client. Exactly. So it takes money to make money, right? And we have those beliefs kind of installed in us just by the culture. But if we went through your specific money beliefs, if you've never examined this, then the chances are you have some beliefs in there that are holding you back. I had a client who said money is hard to come by. And we heard it. I heard it in the conversation. So we dug into it and looked at it. And the more we dug into it, we could find examples of where that wasn't true. We could find examples of how actually his money grew very well and his property, the value of the property increased. He had a tax refund he wasn't expecting. He had some new clients come on board who were willing to pay him more money than he had. And so there were all these examples. Even though that belief was there, he was subconsciously acting out of that belief, which was stopping him from growing. Once we examine that belief and change that belief, his ability to get results changed massively, because now he's come from the belief money, not money is hard to get, money becomes easy, or money comes easily to me. Sure enough, he saw all these examples, all these opportunities that were around him the whole time. And he never took action on them before because he thought money was hard to get. But when he thought money was easy to get, well, he could go and have that conversation, open that door there, and opportunities flooded in a lot easier. So we've got to get the mindset right. There's a belief around this, kind of like we have this thermostat, like an air conditioning unit, and we're set for a level of money that we think we should earn. And that may be an amount of revenue per year, that may be an amount of money in the bank. If we get success and go over that, guess what? We find a way to get rid of that money, to come back to the set point. If we're way behind and we're getting further and further away from the set point, and we have less money than this, we find a way to earn it and get back to it. We're constantly yo-yoing up and down. Good examples of this would be like lottery winners. You've seen examples of these people. They win, tens of millions of dollars, and within 2 years, right, their set point is zero. Maybe they win tens of millions of dollars, and within 2 years, they find a way to spend it and get back to where they are. Or flip it the other way. A good example is Donald Trump. That guy, at some point, he was a billionaire, but because of things that gone wrong, he was 900 million in debt. Now, if you're 900 million in debt, but your identity is that I'm a billionaire, you can do things to get back to that, right? And of course, he made changes. He did some new deals, and sure enough, he's back there. I don't know if he's exactly a billionaire, but you kind of get the example. We come back to that set point. Chances are you probably have a set point now, and if you're not realizing what beliefs are holding you in place on that, you're going to stay in there. So it's good to have people around you, great people like Daniel, to listen and hear and catch you when you hear those beliefs that aren't serving you, to call you on them and to shift them and to change them. So the mindset is the first piece, and then we can go into model if you want, but I'll pause there in case you have any questions or anything you want to add to it.
With the mindset, I've seen this before. One client said to me, Daniel, this is my goal. I want to make $800,000 a year, and that's just for what I want to take out of the businesses that I have and to keep for myself. And he'd never earned anything more than 100 grand. And he had a good year, and he got to 150. And he said, Daniel, I saw my pattern. I said, what was it? He said, as soon as I got to 150, I started to spend. Bigger car, bigger house, bigger TV, more expensive clothes. And he said, after earning 150,000, I was no better off than when I was earning 100,000.
Yeah.
And so I learned more about that. And we call that one a self-sabotaging behavior. And for a lot of business people, they know they're doing it, but they're like, gee, I don't want to say that one out loud. And so that's the self-sabotage. And we bring it back down to that level that we've been programmed to. And some of that programming can come from our parents. Dad never earned more than 100 grand. Mum never earned, well, mum was just stay at home, and we're conditioned to that.
Yep.
But it's not something we tend to be conscious of. The other one, when they drop down, and I've seen this a lot of time, especially during COVID, they go into what's called a scrambling behavior. Instead of working on the business and growing the business, they go into the discounting. How much can I give away? Can I give away 10%, 20%, 30%? So they're making more sales, but they're making less money. And I even saw people go out and start to drive Uber, and they get into that scrambling behavior. Okay, I'm used to earning 100, income's down to 80. What can I do to get it back up? And as soon as they get back to 100, they stop again. And so you've got the self-sabotage behavior, and you bring it back down. You've got your scrambling behavior, and you try to get it back up again. And for a lot of people, they just don't want to talk about it. It's like that hidden insecurity. Gee, I can't talk to anybody about this. But the good news is that there's other people going through what you're going through. And for my client who was sabotaging at 150,000, he's now at 800,000. He's been on 3 international trips this year. He stays in beautiful resorts. He's got a beautiful car. He's got a house that he can afford. And instead of wasting the money, he's now reinvesting it. And so once you learn that mindset component, you can have what you want. It's actually a lot easier if you get the right guidance. Exactly. That's the key. You've got to get the guidance.
Exactly. And here's the thing. You can't hear it yourself or see it yourself because you're in it, you're involved on it. It's kind of like trying to see the label of the bottle, but from on the inside of the bottle, you can't. So you need someone to hold that mirror up to you so you can kind of see those blind spots and see what those things are. And people like you and I, given our training, we can hear the language of the beliefs, and the words people say have a lot of meaning. We had a very quick conversation before the call, and you were mentioning about, some people maybe saying things to themselves like, oh, is this worth it? Is it worth going on? When you say those kind of things, your brain has to listen into that and has to hear it. It's very literal. I hear people say before, oh, that person stabbed me in the back. And it's like, did they? I don't see any blood marks or anything. But if you say those things, your brain literally is going to interpret them that way and behave in that way. So yeah, we've got to be very mindful of the words that we say to ourselves. And I love your example of affirmations, with the children. So you have affirmations every single month?
Every month. And it starts at 7:30 in the morning. So my job as a father is to raise my children and get them independent before 18. And I know the journey that they're going to go on. They're going to go to school and they're going to be bullied. And it's a fact of life. All of us get bullied. I remember when I went to school, I had set a goal with my mum, and she said, Daniel, if you go a whole year without drinking Coca-Cola, because it's bad for you, it's going to give you pimples and it's got caffeine, then I'm going to pay for the registration on your vehicle. Nice. Now, when you're 16 and 17, that's $600 or $700. I'm talking about back in 1996, that was a fortune. And so I was like, Mum, you know what? I'm all in. So I didn't say anything to my friends, but, they'd offer you a can of Coke, and I'd say, oh, no, I'm not drinking Coke. And somebody asked one day, why not? And this is the problem with goal setting, is when you tell your goal to the world, you open yourself up for criticism. And so I hadn't said anything. And then I said to somebody, I've got this agreement with my mum, and the goal is that if I go 365 days without Coca-Cola, then she's going to pay for the registration and insurance on my vehicle. And they were like, oh, okay, that's really cool. But then they wanted to sabotage my success. And so a couple of days later, the boys having fun, it was a little bit malice, but they were having fun. They grabbed me, they pinned me down, they got a 600 ml Coke and they put it in my mouth and they squeezed it in there and filled up my guts. And they were having fun, but for me, it was sabotage because I had gone 11 months committed to that goal and somebody did something to get in my way. And so I know from my experience that my kids are going to go through that. My daughter, she's mixed blood, so she's half Taiwanese, half Aussie, and she's absolutely stunning and she's gorgeous. And when she goes to a Taiwanese school, she stands out. She's taller than everybody else. She looks more mature than all the other 10-year-olds, but she's been kicked in the stomach before. She's been pushed on the bathroom floor and trodden on. And I know what's going to happen on their journey. So we get the affirmations in now so that when somebody says you're not good enough, they'll say, I am good enough. When somebody says, you're not attractive, she'll say, I'm charming. And when somebody says, like the teacher, your grades aren't good enough, she'll say, I'm proud of myself. So we start in the morning, but we continue it in the afternoon because we want to reinforce it. So when my children leave school in the afternoon, they have pop quiz, they have exams. And I'll ask the children, because I want these good beliefs in their mindset, especially about lovability. I'll ask them, how was your day at school? What wins did you have? And my daughter will say, Dad, I got 90% in my exam. And I'll say, beautiful baby, congratulations, that's incredible. How much do I love you? And she says, Dad, 100%. And so in the mornings, we get the affirmations in, we reaffirm it in the afternoon. And my children know that it doesn't matter what their grade is, my level of love will never drop below 100%. And so that's what we're doing because we know what's coming on the journey.
It's amazing. So important for the children. We were speaking about Brian Tracy before, and I think I got this from him. So I asked my children, how much does daddy love you? How much does mommy love you? And they say, if I can fit this into it, they say, this much. Kind of reach as far as they can. And now they've kind of, over the years, they've gone to, I love you this much times infinity. So they kind of know, like, you know, no matter what. So I think that's a really great example. And I'm going to borrow that. I think we'll start having affirmations of the month. We can start that in December. So there you go. That's perfect.
It's a wonderful thing. And I know that in success, and you would have heard Brian Tracy say this as well, is the competitive advantage is only 3%. You don't have to be 100 times better than anybody else. You don't have to be 10 times better than anybody else. You've only got to be 3% better in the most important key result areas. And based on the studies that came out of Stanford Brain Institute, 15% of your success is attributed to your knowledge and skill. And everybody has a family member or friend who peaked way too early and they were the top student at school, they were the top student at university, and then they left out of the school system and there was absolutely no success for them. And then you look at these other guys. I've got friends who went to the worst school, the public school, the ones where all the kids smoke behind the toilets, and they're out there and they've got multi-million-dollar businesses and very little to no education. And Stanford Brain Institute said that 85% of your success is going to come down to your attitude. So if my children can have the knowledge and the skill and the attitude component, then they're going to be successful. And they're learning it now. And I work with many people who are in their 30s, 40s, and 50s and are only looking at developing themselves now. And they know it. They go, I've got all the knowledge, but I'm still not where I want to be. I've got all these skills. Look at all my certificates. Look at the wall. But I'm still not where I want to be. And we know that. And that's what Brian Tracy says. You've only got to be 3% better in the most important key result area. And that mindset component is critical. And it's something that every generation has to learn. Nobody's born with these attributes. We've got to teach them about affirmations. We've got to teach them how to think to change those feelings. And then, of course, to go after what they want. And as parents, that's our job. And we've got 18 years to do it.
100%. Yeah, it's so true, so on the money. And actually, I'd go as far as to say no one is born with those attributes. You mentioned about the 60,000 thoughts that we have every day. A lot of those thoughts can be guided by, you know, your amygdala, which is like your prehistoric part of the brain, and that its job is just to try and keep you safe. So it's constantly feeding you messages that are, you know, fearful, that are holding you back. You know, don't cross the road, don't do this, that's dangerous. So we actually actively
Don't talk to strangers.
don't talk to
And
strangers.
then you start a business and you go, oh shit, I've been conditioned to not talk to strangers all my life. Now I've got a prospect.
That's right. It's a bit of a scramble in the brain. And so our default probably is more on the negative side to that. So we do have to condition it. I know there have been times where I presented this to people and you spoke about the Coca-Cola, and I'll have like a bowl of Coca-Cola and I'll say, this is your current conditioning. This is what got you to where you are now. But hey, if you want to improve, we need to be pouring this new conditioning in, this new water. And you've got to keep pouring so that Coca-Cola comes out and it's clear. And you can't just do it once. It's not like one event is fixed. It's an ongoing thing. It's your daily affirmations that you're doing, is rebuilding those habits. And coming back to your Coca-Cola example, that was pretty mean of your friends. I get why they would find it funny, but I guess it's also a clue that we need to put the right people around us. Now, I know you've got amazing people around you now, and I'm guessing some of those friends have probably dropped away over the years and they're probably not around you anymore. So we've got to have the right people around us to support us on that journey, particularly if we're going to voice our goals. We want to have people around us who want to support us on the goals, not sabotage us.
And that's the environment. I remember their faces, I remember their names, and I've got a little book, and I remind myself, don't bring them into your inner circle.
Yeah.
But a lot of us feel guilty. We feel that, how could I say no to that person? I wouldn't want to abandon them. I wouldn't want them to think bad of me. But there's people out there who are just on a different wavelength. And my wife and I say, if they're on a different wavelength, they're just not for us. There's nothing that they're a bad person. They might have done wonderful things in their life. It's just a different frequency. And all of us have felt that frequency before. You meet somebody for the first time, you start to resonate. It's like harmonious as soon as you meet them. Okay, we think similar. We've got the right feelings. We're heading in the same direction. And those people, and you mentioned it before with successful people, a successful person will always share resources with you. A successful person will always try to lift you up because they say at the top, there's so much room. Think about the top of the pyramid. People look at it and go, there's not much room up there. There's so much room up there because there's so few people there. But down at the bottom of the pyramid, it's absolutely crowded and everybody's treading on each other, scrambling on each other, ripping each other's ears off, trying to scramble. But there's so much at the top and there's so much to go around. But the people who are toxic, we call them crabs. And Chinese fishermen learned this many years ago, that if you went out into the ocean and you went fishing for crabs, they learned that crabs are savage. And if you take a crab out of the cray pot and you put it into a bucket and you don't tie up its pincers, what it will do is it'll put its pincers on the side of the bucket, pull itself out, and scurry back to freedom and jump back into the water. And the Chinese fishermen, they got smart and they said, well, what we've got to do so they don't run away, we've got to tie up their pincers. But when you're catching hundreds of crabs at a time, that's a lot of hard work. And a crab with a big pincer can actually rip your finger off. So one day they got a little bit lazy, and laziness is a good thing. The fishermen, they put multiple crabs in a bucket. And what they realized was that when there was a lot of crabs in the bucket, none of them got out of the bucket. They all stayed in the bucket. And so they watched them. They tried to figure out, why is it then when we put more crabs in a bucket, they don't run away to freedom? And they watched it. And every time one crab tried to pull itself out of the bucket, the other crab reached up and pulled it back down into the bucket. And they laughed and said, this is crab mentality. If you can't have it, if I can't have it, neither can you. And they pull you back down. And that's why I've got their name in that little book over there. Okay, they pulled me down. No second chance.
That's right.
We're going to move forward.
That's exactly right.
For people, as they start to make improvements in their mindset, once they start to make improvements in their strategies, what starts to happen to their profit margins?
Profit can grow very quickly. We change a mindset and profit can grow. I've done this so many times. Without even introducing a new strategy, we shift people's perspective or attitude, and the profit margin can grow. Once we get into the strategies, and that was the second part, like the model, there's like 7 key areas. We focus on these 7 key areas and optimize each of them. And then you can see incremental improvements in each of them. And I know we're probably getting short on time now, so I'll just burn through them very quickly. I think there's 125 ways that we can do this that are free and easy, and I'm happy to gift a report to the community to list, so they can hear them all. But the key 7 is leads. Do you have a good lead generation system? If you can find out a way to increase your leads by 10%, well, guess what? You've got 10% more revenue coming through if you change nothing else. Conversion. How well are you converting your clients? If you don't converting your prospects, if you have a good system that helps people convert more effectively, then you can. I worked with a gentleman. He was installing kitchens. His team would convert 20% of the prospects. If he went out, he would convert 80% of the prospects. So now he'd had a lot of experience. So we started training his team. Now over 6 months, we got his team to start converting at 40%. Right? So they doubled their conversion. The business doubled. Now you imagine in a business where all the overheads are already covered, there's no additional overheads in there. Every bit of gross margin went straight to the pocket, straight into his pocket. Right now, let's just take, for example, say his gross margin was 50%. So he spent 50% on the materials of the kitchen, etc. That meant every additional $100 he made, $50 went into his profit for pocket. into his pocket, straight for his profit. So you can jump quite quickly. So leads, conversion, average dollar sell. How much are we getting your clients to spend each time? Can we be offering them more services? Can we be increasing the price? How frequently are you getting your clients to repurchase? Are they buying from you once and never again? Or are they buying from you 26 times, 100 times? I'll give you an example. We had a gentleman come around here to cut the grass for us, to mow the lawn. And he came and he went and he never asked about coming back again. So, okay. I asked someone else to come and he said, hey, Kevin, really what you need is your garden needs to be cut every 2 weeks as a minimum. I'm like, okay, great. I don't have time. I want to be focusing on my business. Come back every 2 weeks. So all of a sudden they've got 26 transactions out of me that year, whereas that guy got one. Right. So how frequently getting your clients to repurchase? Maybe you've got clients right now who have done business with you and they've forgotten about you. Are we reminding them? Are we inviting them back? How well are we managing our expenses? And I guess you spoke about smaller business owners. How well are we managing our time? Are we putting our time into the high value activities, or are we getting stuck in lower value stuff that's not really adding the biggest return to the business? And cash flow we touched on before. From a cash perspective, are we keeping that cash close to us, or are we waiting for people for a long time for them to pay us? Are we having a lot of money tied up in stock? Are we paying our suppliers too quickly? Because if we don't keep the cash close to us, we can't reinvest it into higher returning activities. So these 7 areas, whilst I've only touched on them very quickly, if we looked at those and strategically found slight improvements in each of them, the amount of profit growth can be significant in your business.